It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. Joining me on the show today is Larry Broughton. He's an award-winning entrepreneur, CEO, best-selling author, keynote speaker, mentor to other entrepreneurs. Larry, welcome to Accelerate.
Hey, thanks for having me. Let's have some fun. Thanks, Andy.
I think we will. So take a minute, introduce yourself. Tell us what you're doing.
Well, that's a good intro. That was a great start, by the way. So many people will think I'm kind of the schizophrenic guy, and they might be a little bit right on that. But I've got a lot of interest all over the board. I grew up in rural New York and traveled around a little bit in my martial arts days before I went to the military. And I spent about 9 years in the military, 8 of which were in the Army Special Forces. Many know those guys as the Green Berets. Mm-hmm. It was a great experience. And my first job out of the military on active duty was as a night auditor in a small little rundown no-tell motel in San Francisco in the Tenderloin.
Do you remember the name?
I do. Back then it was called the Garden Inn. After being there for about 6 months, an investment group came in to buy the thing and renovate it. And the plan was to turn it into a kind of a new concept back then called a boutique hotel. Now it's a very popular part of the industry, but back then nobody really knew what we were talking about. It's now called the Phoenix Hotel in San Francisco, and it's still there today. And so that was kind of my entree into the hotel industry. And then just over the years, as people were saying, "Oh my gosh, you're growing, you're doing great things, you seem really successful," and they're starting to ask me to start helping them launch businesses. And so from that came speaking engagements and TV appearances on Hotel Impossible and the Travel Channel and CNBC and CNN and MSNBC. And so what I really realized, Andy, was that I love entrepreneurship. To me, entrepreneurs are like modern day, pioneers and explorers, because they have to look out past the horizon. And so I just love entrepreneurship. And then as I was coaching and mentoring entrepreneurs over the years, I really realized what we've got is a leadership problem in this country. We have a big leadership gap. And so now I spend a lot of time speaking about leadership and helping entrepreneurs and other people actually lead their organizations. So that's kind of what I do. And I'm absolutely blessed.
You're being a little modest. I mean, you are CEO and owner of a hotel chain.
I am.
That too.
That too. Yeah, that's the big thing.
So tell us about that. What's your chain? So it's called Broughton Hotels, and we really focus on independent and boutique hotels. And we've got, close to about 20 hotel projects, either that we're currently operating or that we've got in the pipeline at this point. And we've got a pretty hairy, audacious goal. And in fact, Andy, this might be the first time I actually say this publicly. I mean, Everybody in our organization knows this. But we've got our big, hairy, audacious goal is to have 80 hotels by the end of 2020. Wow.
And so to do that requires a whole lot of things, right? It requires, time and capital and talent. And so there are absolutely unique challenges that come along with that. And so that's very exciting and, scary at the same time.
I was going to say 80 hotels. That is big.
Really big.
Well, let's sort of use that as a way to segue into the topic we want to talk about, which was, you're making the decision to go from 20 to 80. You've written and you talk about this importance of being great, and you differentiate great from being happy, successful, or even talented.
Yeah.
So what is great? Because for our audience, we've got entrepreneurs, we've got business owners, we've got C-level people, we've got salespeople. I mean, listening, everybody wants to be great. So what's it mean to be great?
Yeah. So words have meaning, right? And I use the term success a lot when I'm out when I'm doing some writing or I'm speaking, having short conversations. That's what people get, success. People want to be successful, but what the heck does that mean, And I was blessed that I was in Scottsdale over this past weekend speaking to about 200 female military veteran entrepreneurs. And I just kind of went on a tangent while I was on stage and asked how many people want to be successful, and everybody starts cheering. They raise their hands. And what I said is, here's the deal though. If you want to be successful, stop chasing success, because it's meaningless. It's empty. It's hollow. If you really want to have a life of impact, if you really want to do great things, you've got to be a great person. And by that, I mean, you have to live a life of significance. When you live a life of significance and you significantly impact your communities, your place of worship, your families, your team members, your investors, success is the byproduct of significance. And by that, I mean, are you living a life of meaning? Do you have a why in your life? Because entrepreneurship is tough. Leadership is tough. Trying to drive revenues through a traditional sales program is tough. And if you don't have passion with it, if you don't know why you're doing that, then when the going gets tough, you're going to quit. I know you talk a lot about sales, Andy, and it's so funny that most salespeople give up after 2 or 3 attempted contacts with the potential salesperson or the potential client, right? Prospect. And really, we need to know, usually it's like 13 times before they'll even, take your call, right? Which is why cold calling sucks, right?
Yes, there are lots of people listening to the show that would attest to that, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got to build relationships with people, and people want to do business with those that they know, like, and trust. Well, we tend to like and trust people who are living a life of significance and serving more than those people who just take, right? Don't you bump into people all the time and you can tell this is just somebody who wants to take from me?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the prototypical one these days is, somebody contacts you on LinkedIn to connect with you on LinkedIn. And you just know by looking at this request that, yeah, if you say accept, you're going to get hit with an email within a day saying, hey,
and that happens. I have a canned response that I cut and paste now, because it's almost daily, Andy, that I get those things through LinkedIn requests. Is that the first time they contact me, they're pitching me. And that is not the way to do sales. You've got to build a relationship with people. This is why I really try to get people not to, this is a dramatic statement. I tell people to stop going to networking events. I do that to get people's attention, right?
Yeah.
Because people don't want to be networked. You want to build a relationship with people. I go back, people want to do business with those that they know, like, and trust. Well, you have to have a relationship with somebody first. And most of these networking events that you go to, what happens? You're approached by somebody, they're stuffing their business card in your hand. They might give you a pitch, but their eyes are automatically scanning the rest of the room to see, okay, who's my next victim? Right.
Well,
or you might be the person that's doing this.
They may have a quota in terms of how many cards they're supposed to give out. That's how some people go to meetings and define, if I don't make 20 connections, not relationships, but 20 connections, it wasn't successful.
Yeah. So, but if they were to take that next step, actually, and figure out how can I serve these people that I have cards from, then that's the right step. But too often, people will take these stacks of business cards and then do nothing with them except pitch them right out of the gate. So I guess my whole point here is that if you're going to live a life of significance, if you want to do great things, you got to be a great person. Well, then you got to build relationships with people. Now, the thing is, though, that's scary. When you build relationships, it means there's going to be a little bit of vulnerability that goes along.
Well, and that's hard, right? And that's one of the things that isn't taught oftentimes from people when they're out networking or making connections for sales relationships, is that vulnerability is really important for humanizing yourself.
We are so afraid to be authentic and show our real self for some strange reason. But you used a word that I like to kind of push on a little bit for a good reason. And you said, yeah, it's hard. So when I was in the Army, one of the mantras was this, do the hard right over the easy wrong. Mm-hmm. And sometimes doing the right thing is hard. It's going to be uncomfortable. And this is such a cliche. It's such a cliche, but I mean, it makes sense, right? Success is just outside your comfort zone, and you can't coast. There's one way to coast, and it's downhill. Those are all kind of cliches, but there is real meaning behind those,
Well, give an example. Like when you go to an event, to a networking event, how do you approach somebody that you don't know?
So I'm a painful introvert.
You sound like it.
No, really, I am. So what I do is I have to really get psyched up. If I'm going to approach somebody I don't know, what I try to do is I take a wing person with me.
Which is a good strategy.
Yeah. So what happens oftentimes, I'm oftentimes surprised at how many introverts are in the sales force or in the sales world.
I am.
Yeah. But I take a wing person. Oftentimes what I like to do is take somebody who knows other people, and then we can just play off of each other. And so we generally, together we'll go approach someone that we don't know. And what I try to do is I don't ask, what do you do? Or what's your business? What I try to do is just get some small talk going, right? So to put me at ease and put them at ease. Because my thing is this: oftentimes when I go to these networking events, if somebody approaches me and they ask, what do you do? Well, automatically what they're doing is they're going through this kind of sifting, like, are you worth my time? Is really what a lot of these people are asking, right? And I guess
they're qualifying you as opposed to building a relationship.
Exactly. But oftentimes it might not necessarily be what I do, but it might be, who do I know that I can help you? Right. And so there is the degrees of separation. That is LinkedIn, I like LinkedIn a lot. And I think I've heard people on your show talk about LinkedIn quite a bit. So that is one of the things that I like about LinkedIn is that, just because I have a contact with one person, there might be somebody that's 2 or 3 degrees away who I need to get to. Well, it's the same thing when you meet somebody live in person. Just because you might not get a sale from me today doesn't mean that I might not be able to add value to your organization and vice versa. So my thing is this: your question was, what do you do with somebody that I don't know at an event? I just try to build that know, like, and trust factor. How about smiling? How about that?
Huge, right? There's been a bunch of research recently talking about just the power of a smile to be able to start a relationship with somebody.
Absolutely. And I am amazed at going to these networking events. And now it's almost a sport for me. I stand back and watch people who are trying to build relationships, and they got this very serious, dour, pessimistic look on their face, trying to grab business cards, and you can just see how painful it is for them. So I smile, try to make some small talk, and just build the know, like, and trust factor.
So we talked about life of significance. I think the thing that is a lesson for sales professionals in particular, I think entrepreneurs by and large begin to understand this, but this idea of the life of significance is something that transcends personal and business.
Oh, of course. Well, here's the thing. Years ago, I used to live my life in these little compartments. I had my professional life, I had my personal life, I had my private life, I had my, all these different lives, right? And that was hard to keep all those balls in the air. And what that is, that's a lack of integrity. When you live a life of integrity, then everything is integral. You blend all these things. And so the person you see sitting here at my desk in my office right now is the same person, my friends saw last night when we were out to dinner. The same person that my kids see. And so you've got to live, a little more authentically. I guess I've got to be more real. So I think
for people, I think for that point, it's really critical for people in sales or people that deal with customers a lot. Is oftentimes they sort of picture themselves as being on stage, right, when they're dealing with customers, and being on stage is by definition is playing a part, and the customer sees right through that.
Yeah, and I think you can play a part or feel like you're on stage. I need to sometimes talk myself up as if I am going on stage, but I can still be real. I can still be authentic if I'm on stage. And there is a little bit of a performance. When I was in martial arts, one of the phrases my twin brother and I, who is a martial arts rock stud, is excess within control. What we talked about is getting that internal energy or that vibe up, but pulling it back just enough that you're not like spinning around like a whirling dervish, right? So excess within control. And so to me, when I have to quote unquote get on stage, that's what I do, because people pick up on this energy. There is this kind of electricity vibrational thing that happens. I don't want to get too West Coast California for your international audience here.
Well, you are in Southern California.
Yeah, that's right. But think about it. When you meet someone at one of these networking events, or if you've got a team member or someone on, I don't know, just somebody in your organization who has a really low energy or low vibe, it's not very attractive, right? And so if you smile and you've got kind of this high energy, then it's a little bit more attractive. Now, this life of significance thing is we really do have to realize that we aren't just here to make a sale. I just really believe that it does transform just our professional and our personal life. If we just do good in the world, somehow the world rewards us for that. But this, back in the 80s, there was that movie Wall Street, right? And Gordon Gekko, what was the famous quote was, "Greed is good," and he was kind of cheered on back then in the 80s, if you remember.
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely, I remember. Yeah.
But what do we realize now? That's not really the way the world works best. This whole competitive, and this is one of the things about these networking events that drives me crazy too. This whole competitive approach to success is empty and hollow. Though I win by you losing, I got more accounts, and so thereby I'm better than you. It's really collaborative success. This is where how can we actually help each other? I win by you winning. This is what I was saying, when I go to these networking events, and if somebody goes through their little qualification process and I don't fit that, then I have no value to them. Well, I know a whole lot of people, and I'll bet you if we built a relationship, I can help you out. So when we stop looking at everybody as a potential prospect, but more like a human, I think it's a great mental shift, and it helps whether you're serving in a soup kitchen or being a tutor for some after school program in a inner city, or whether you're leading a sales team of 50 people doing great things.
Well, I think it's complicated for people these days when we talk about the serving, and you just put this great paradigm about people believing that they only win if you lose, or vice versa. You look at our political environment these days. I mean, it's very distinctly, we're so polarized. It very much is, I win, you lose. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's none of this. Well, how do we work together to make this country better? Right. We're just, and I think that seeps into, or the danger is that it seeps into sort of everything, right? It seeps into the culture.
It absolutely does. And, but when we accept that just because one person we think is right, that I've got to be wrong or they're wrong because I'm right. I guess I just believe that, things are going to work out in the world. And what I can control is my own positive frame of reference, my own positive energy. I don't recall, I'm no spring chicken, I'm in my mid 50s, this is not the first election that we've gone through. But I do know this, what I can control is the way I respond to stimuli. And I don't recall a time when every business relationship, every meeting starts with somebody talking about politics and how fired up they are, how scared they are, how pissed off they are. And like, why? Why?
I agree. Okay.
Let's just approach the world from a positive state. And I can promise you this, that when our sales teams are going out with positive energy, that's much more attractive than going out with negative energy.
And it starts with a smile, as you said.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit about, you had talked about 12 keys to greatness, and I thought it'd be interesting to run through some of that. So, and we've talked about some of it here today, but one, which is, to me, is just so critical, because what we see in sales too often these days is people sort of being too overly scripted, and whether it's because of insecurity or there's new and they're learning or whatever. But you said key number one is you have to become more self-aware. And I think that's just so important to, if you're dealing with another person, if you're more self-aware, you can also be more aware of them.
Exactly. So that's that's the key. In the military, we talk about LSA, low situational awareness, and that means kind of like recognizing what's going on around you instead of just being so self-absorbed about your little situation. It goes back to serving other people, and just being authentic and real, and checking in with your teammates and your tribe from time to time. So we really do have to be self-aware. It's a little bit of staring at your navel from time to time, and looking inward. And one of the things that I do each day is I start each day with a morning routine to get me centered, and just checking how am I feeling today, what's going on, and and start thinking about the positive impact I'm going to make in the world and on my team. But if we're not self-aware and really recognize what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses, and working on our strengths, and then building our sales team and our teams around us to augment those weaknesses, then you make a bigger impact when we're self-aware.
And so, do you take a moment at the beginning of the day, a little quiet time, a little meditation, affirmation time?
Yeah. So what I tell people now is I start my morning routine the night before,
okay.
Because I started doing a lot of reading on sleep and brain activity over the years, and have recognized that the way we go to sleep is the way we tend to wake up. So if I'm putting negative news stuff and war movies in my head before I go to bed, well, that's what my brain is processing, and that's the way I wake up. And so before I go to bed at night, I do a little bit of a gratitude journal. If I'm not actually writing down, then I'm just listing in my brain or in my mind all those things that I'm grateful for. And that kind of calms me down. And then in the morning when I get up, before I check email, before I check voicemail, before I get on social media, I make my little green smoothie drink, pour a cup of coffee, and sit down and take 7 minutes. I just start with 7 minutes of affirmations, readings, meditations, and sometimes it turns into 15 minutes, and sometimes it's 20 minutes, but I can do it in 7 minutes. And really, truly, I'd say I talk myself into this is going to be an awesome day, and here's what my goals are for the day. And oftentimes it's not, hey, I'm going to make this many calls today. Usually it's not, hey, I'm going to, close this deal today. It's, hey, I'm going to serve this many people today. I'm going to make a positive impact on, if I see somebody at Starbucks, I'm going to open the door for them. If I see somebody at the grocery store, I'm going to carry their groceries for them. Yeah, I get very intentional. I think that for years, I was just like a leaf on the wind. A whole lot of activity, and I was floating around. But when I actually start living a life of intentionality, that actually translated and actually spilled over into the number of calls I was going to be making that day, the number of new leads I was going to be making that day.
Interesting. So sort of along with that, then one of the key points you said is learning to love yourself.
That is a hard one for so many people, because we carry on, or I do, and I know because I do, and I get a chance to speak to thousands of people each year on this topic. We still carry around a lot of negative vibes that our second grade school teacher didn't like our report, or, dad didn't give me enough positive affirmations growing up. And so I've got a book out there called Flashpoints for Achievers. And one of the flashpoints in there, it's a kind of daily affirmations, is that if we let other people talk to us the way we often talk to ourselves, we'd slap them. Right?
That's a great point.
And we can't do that. We really do have to love ourselves, because, I believe that we were, there was some massive creator out there that created this whole universe and us, and that we all have unique giftings, and that if we don't recognize what those gifts are, then it's, and use those gifts, I think it's immoral. And so when we recognize I don't need to be like anybody else out there, I just need to be the best version of me I can. And this is like kind of corny, but I'll tell you, the first several years of entrepreneurship on my own was very rough, because I was trying to pretend, I was trying to act, I was trying to speak like, I was trying to write like, I was trying to dress like other entrepreneurs out there, because I didn't really love myself. I couldn't see the real value that I brought. Right. And so it's a process, and some people it takes therapy, some people it takes reading, some people it takes, quiet meditation, others it takes, querying, asking your closest people, hey, this is like really corny, but I had to do this. What is it that you like about me? What value do I bring to this business? And when you start recognizing that, then you start saying, wow, I actually make an impact in the world. I just want to spend one more second on this, if you don't mind.
No problem.
If you come to my office, Andy, and there's a wall here with shelves on it that have a bunch of different awards, copies of articles, trophies, and that kind of thing that we've won or that we've received for entrepreneurship and leadership. In my old office, I didn't have that stuff out because I was like, well, it looks too much like an I Love Larry wall. And you know what? When we moved here to this office, I said, yeah, but I do love Larry. And sometimes when I'm here at early in the morning before anyone else gets here, or if I'm the last one out at night and it's feeling really hard, sometimes I just need to go to that wall and look at it and say, you know what? At one point in my career, somebody saw a moment of brilliance. Mm-hmm. I need to remind myself of that sometimes, No,
nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that we need to do that. Sometimes it's called a talisman. Sometimes there's something that if I can just touch it, then there's power that comes from that. But we've been programmed. Oh, you shouldn't be so. You can love yourself without being a jerk or without being braggadocious, without being pompous, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it takes a little bit of humility,
right? Well, sort of parallel to what we were just talking about is one that I think is key. That's really hard for people, and you sort of addressed a little bit but. If you want to become great, you gotta let go of jealousy and anger. I mean, the jealousy, you said you're trying to sort of pattern yourself on other people as opposed to being yourself. Yeah. And see this all the time in sales. People, it's okay to model some of what you do after someone else, but you're not that person, right? You need to have your own thing, and you can't be jealous of what they achieve. And you see this all the time as people are so focused on what other people have achieved rather than doing what they have control over to succeed themselves.
Yeah, and this is the hard thing. And it was very hard for me, to be honest with you. Jealousy is one of the deadlies, Mm-hmm. But a lot of it has to do with comparison, and a lot more of it has to do with fear. That if they're winning, that means that there's not enough out there for me. And I can just promise you, this is not how the universe works. Mm-hmm. The universe is not about a zero-sum game. There's enough opportunity, success, wealth, recognition for all of us. And so I had to start doing really daily affirmations. And I can tell you, I'm not going to say it here on the air, but there was one person that I was very jealous of in the business world for a long time. And it got to the point where every morning I just had to bless this person. I hope that they do great things today. Man, I hope they get new accounts today. And it felt very fake in the beginning because it was very fake in the beginning. But I had to just keep doing it and talk, because our mind responds to positive things. It doesn't respond to negativity except in a negative way. And so I've gotten to a point where I just start blessing people that I don't necessarily like or enjoy. And I was having a conversation over the weekend with somebody about, it comes to politics too. Why don't we just bless them and hope that they have a really successful term? Because if they have a successful term, we all do. Right? Exactly. And the same thing, I think, in sales. If we bless our competition, like, good for you, guess what? And I've seen this over and over again, that those good vibes end up coming back to us because people see that people want to do business. I'm going to say it again, with people they know, like, and trust. And if you're negative and you're jealous, people pick up on that negativity and they don't want to do business with you. And then they're not going to refer clients to you. But I want my competitors to be so darn busy that they can't handle all the business. And because I've supported them, they start sending business my way. Mm-hmm. How about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had two speaking opportunities in the last year that, came to me from someone that, nominally I'm a competitor with.
Yes. Yeah.
But to your point, he was overly busy. He couldn't handle at that specific time or dual commitments. Yeah. And, he referred them to me. It's like fantastic. And I'm like, okay, when can I do that again? I'm just like anxious. When can I return the favor?
Yes. That's a great way to live life.
Yeah.
It's a great way to live life. Yeah.
All right. So last one we'll jump into this one is really important because this comes up actually more and more. And it's if you're familiar with Robert Cialdini, who wrote the great book Influence. He's got a new book out called Persuasion, which he was just on my show a couple weeks ago. And we talk about know, like, and trust is important. But what he found in the research and what the research is finding is that that there's actually a know, like, and trust, and then there's like again, because he's finding that people are more likely to want to do business with people they think like them.
Yeah.
So to your point is, key to greatness is show people you care about them. You're actually opening them up to a relationship because they think, wow, this person likes me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like is so underrated.
Well, it's bilateral. It's not just, them liking you. It's you liking them as well.
Right. But you don't know that. And they don't know that they like you unless you're authentic.
Right.
So as you walk out the door of our offices here at our Broughton company's headquarters in Orange County, California, there is a sign that says, authentic people delivering creative solutions. So what does that do for all of our team members each day when they walk by there? Well, it's a reminder we're supposed to be authentic. We don't have to be the same as anybody else. Just be real. Focus on solutions, creative solutions that might have worked one way one year, that might work differently this year. But let's just try to be really creative. But it comes down to authenticity. And we've all had experiences, right, where you've met somebody or you know somebody, there's a business associate, and they're just fake.
Yeah.
And they're a fraud. You don't want to spend any time with them. There was a great book I read years ago, frankly, after I was going through a divorce, called True Faced. And I don't remember the author right now.
True Faced?
True Faced.
Okay.
It's a take on Two-Faced,
right?
Oh, they're two-faced, which means that that they aren't living a life of integrity.
Right.
They have one personality or persona in one situation and something different elsewhere. Well, the whole premise of being true-faced is showing your true identity all the time, being authentic, letting your guard down, being vulnerable once in a while. Now, obviously, you've got to. There are certain situations, you don't want to walk into a meeting where someone you just met and spill, your guts about, your kids being in an alcohol dependency program or those kind of things. Obviously, there are boundaries that you need to maintain. But the sooner we can be real, the sooner we can. People will like us, and when people like us, we tend to like them.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the points
you made. One of the great things about social media, I think that people helps us build relationships with people, because certainly people want to know the people they're doing business with nowadays.
Right. Well, I was going to make a point about authenticity, because I've seen this a fair amount in the last 10, 15 years, because the whole thing about being authentic has come more to the fore, is that people take that as a license to sort of rid themselves of humility, because they think they're being authentic, and if they think they're smarter than everybody else, well, I'm being authentic myself. I'm going to tell you that I'm smarter than everybody else, and
that's just being a jerk.
That's just being a jerk, right? But throughout all this, I think the key to greatness in my book is humility, because there's always. You have to be empathetic to people and their situation, but there's always people who are smarter, brighter, more creative, and so on that you're going to encounter. And humility is a great door opener.
Well, humility is a great door opener, but it's also the lack of it is the Achilles heel for most leaders and entrepreneurs. Is that when people feel like they need to be the smartest person in the room and let everybody in the room know it, that's a problem. Right. There are a lot of, and again, this is fear-based, because they're afraid if I have people in my life who are bolder and brighter than I am, then, they're not going to have the same value. They're not going to make the same contributions. I'll tell you this, in my organization here, I am proud that every executive on our team is bolder and brighter in their area of expertise than I am. And I'm a big believer that we should all have boards of advisors, both personal and professional advisors that we can count on, who can support us, who can help us during the bad times and serve us during the great times. I can tell you, all of the members that are on my two different boards are all bolder and brighter than I am. But that takes humility. It really does. You got to be willing to say, hey, but it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You've got to do a little bit of self-reflection to know what value do I have. It doesn't mean that they're better than I am. It just means that in these certain areas they're bolder and they're brighter. So
yeah, well, it's sort of summarized a lot of what we talked about. It's not a competition between you and everybody else. So
life is not a competition. You're right. We can be competitive. Absolutely. I'm as competitive as the next guy.
Me too.
But you're right. Life's not a competition. It's really a collaboration. I think that we are meant for community. It doesn't need to be like warring tribes constantly. And sadly, I think that's where our political climate is right now. It's like warring tribes instead of trying to figure things out together. But the same thing is happening. But my fear is that this is going to start translating over into business, because I felt like we were kind of heading in the right direction for a while there, with more businesses collaborating. And this is where innovation comes from collaboration, not isolation.
Right.
And I would encourage anybody who's in sales is to like reach out to your competitors, quote unquote competitors, reach out to people who are working in competitive companies and build relationships. You never know where they're going to lead.
Exactly. Well, good. Well, Larry, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us today how people can find out more about you.
Probably the easiest way is to go to my personal website, and it's larrybroughton.me. Okay, M-E, larrybroughton.me. But, I'm on all those different social media platforms, on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. The Twitter handle is Larry Broughton. But would love to hear from people. It's a great life. And I just encourage people to keep a positive spirit and do something significant today.
Excellent. Well, good. Well, again, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Andy.
And friends, thank you for taking the time to join us today. Remember, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And one easy way to do that, join my conversations every day with top business experts like my guest today, Larry Broughton, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks again for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.